So let's raise the big questions on the Bollywood roundtable. Is Bollywood now an industry in crisis? Will Hindi cinema ever be the same again? Is the era of the superstar blockbuster film simply over? Is the challenge one of content or of changing business models? And are social media boycotts really hurting cinema and film? Joining me now tonight are Swara Bhaskar, who I recorded earlier, Bhavna Somaya, leading film critic, former film editor, Tanuj Garg is a film producer, Akshay Rathi is a film distributor and exhibitor, Bharat Dabolkar is ad guru and theatre professional and playwright, and I'm also joined by Lata Srinivasan, senior film journalist. I appreciate all of you joining us. We'll try and bring in as many aspects as possible. I've got at the moment Swara Bhaskar, who, as I said, I recorded earlier. And I asked Swara because her film is also releasing shortly. Swara, normally before a film releases, you have jitters about whether the box office will accept it or not. Now, whether it's Brahmastra or your film, it seems the jitters are about whether social media will boycott it. That seems to be the new buzz in Bollywood. How seriously should we take these social media calls to boycott films, and you particularly have been targeted at times?
Sir, you're absolutely bang on that. It seems like suddenly now the new judges who will sit in judgment on films and how they are is this sort of unnamed kind of what I like to call the Bring Down Bollywood Brigade. Who they are, what their agenda is sometimes not necessarily clear. Sometimes they themselves make it very obvious in the kind of things they're saying, the kind of accusations and the hysteria they're trying to whip up around Bollywood. I personally feel that the hype and the noise is more than the real bite. I know that there is this perception that Lal Singh Chaddha and Raksha Bandhan did not do the expected numbers at the box office because of the social media boycott, but I think industry insiders and trade experts will tell you that that's not necessarily entirely true. The numbers don't always kind of add up to that. There was, yes, these trends are nuisance in a perception sensitive industry like Bollywood, but can they turn a film into and cause a crash at the box office returns? I don't think so. I mean, let's remember that we've talked a lot about Raksha Bandhan and Lal Singh Chaddha not performing at the box office. There are 4 Hindi films that were legit hits this year: Gangubai Kathiawadi, Bhool Bhulaiya 2, Jug Jug Jio, and Ek Villain Returns. And both Alia and Karan Johar have for the last 2 years been trolled because of in the aftermath of the Sushant Singh Rajput suicide. Both of them have been trolled. Their films have been trolled. There were boycott campaigns, and it didn't necessarily work. So I think that the thing with the boycott is that the noise is a lot. Yeah, it's not pleasant. It's not nice for a marketing team or the PR team or the producer of a film to have to deal with this kind of boycott nonsense before the release. But I can tell you that the same thing happened with Veere Di Wedding in 2018 with my film, because and it was centered around me and boycotting the film, and the film made more than 100 crores worldwide. It was the highest opening film for the quarter, and it was the highest grossing film for that quarter as well, and it was a super hit. So yeah, I think that we are, the fear is, and the hype and the hysteria is more than the real necessarily the numbers. I don't know that the numbers add up.
But where does this hype and hysteria come from, Swara? Do you believe, as you mentioned, Sushant Singh Rajput's death for a moment there, was that the turning point? Suddenly a number of people felt Bollywood was a terrible place to be in, where there was drug abuse, where people are getting depressed, where there is nepotism. Did that in 2020 change anything and make people like you possibly more vulnerable in a way because you are outspoken?
Well, I think definitely there are 2 things. One, that Sushant Singh Rajput suicide created this kind of crazy hysteria that, and I'm sorry to say this on an electronic media channel, but that I think that the mainstream electronic media kind of picked up in a really irresponsible manner. They whipped up a hysteria around it. They whipped up really irresponsible conspiracy theories around it. We've seen the fallout of that in terms of what happened with Ria, the fact that she went to jail, the kind of, demand for mob justice that came around that. That's one aspect of it. And that whole Sushant Singh Rajput suicide thing has become like a bit of a cult. You know, the crazy conspiracies like that kind of circulate on that. So I really don't understand who those people are or what that agenda is. The other thing I'm sorry to say is that, you know, there is an agenda as far as targeting Bollywood goes, because Bollywood is, you know, an industry that is one of the most popular symbols, the most popular expressions, and the most popular vehicles for India's secularism, for our diversity. It's an industry that has always been secular, not just in terms of the content that we have made for the larger part of our more than 100-year history, for the kind of philosophy that it's put out. It's a film industry that has stood very strongly for the values of our Indian constitution, whether it's the spirit of secularism, whether it's the spirit of fraternity, whether it's the spirit of equality, the kind of stories that you tell. Any love story will always, you know, push the idea that love is greater than societal divide. Love is greater than the divides of caste and class and language and religion. And you know, it's an industry that has a very high representation of our minorities, our linguistic identities, our ethnic identities, our religious identities, our caste identities. Look at the credits of any film to date, you'll find almost every religious, linguistic, ethnic, regional caste identity represented. So the people in this country who don't like India's diversity obviously hate Bollywood, right? And because Bollywood is so popular, if you want to discredit India's diversity, if you want to discredit Indian secularism, if you want to spin conspiracy theories about Indian secularism, your first target has to be the most popular symbol and the most popular vehicle for that secular message.
You know, Swara is setting up the debate. Her new film is Jahan Char Yaar, and we'll have more of her later. But who wants to dive in? Tanuj, you want to respond to that? Do you believe that Bollywood is being threatened by those who, in a way, feel that Bollywood represents, Swara claims diversity, but we've heard voices claiming that Bollywood is anti-Hindu, that Bollywood is actually a space where there's nepotism, there's a dark underbelly, and now people are reacting, and therefore cinema is facing these challenges. Do you go by that? Look at Brahmastra. Because Ranbir Kapoor allegedly in an interview said that he liked beef, people want to boycott the film. Should we be taking all this seriously?
Not at all, Rajdeep. Firstly, we need to understand that paid texts, who are trolls? Trolls are essentially paid texts and nerds whose job it is to affect the perception of a film, you know, or its actors or its filmmakers. Just because someone in the mix does not tie to a particular political ideology or a narrative, right? A film or an actor that challenges the political narrative gets trolled. In fact, even critics aren't spared these days, right? If they ill review a film, which is a favorite of the troll factories, even they get trolled. That's the irony. So I completely second what Swara is saying. I think there's way too much hype. There's way too much noise around these troll factories. I absolutely disagree when people attribute the failure of a film to trolling. I think that's just delusional. That's wrong, because I think we need to give the audience some credit here. I think much of our audience has really smartened up. They're very evolved. They're educated. They're aware. They're not going to abandon watching a film just because there are some boycott calls on Twitter, right?
Okay, I'm going to stop you for a moment because we're going to try and get your audio link fixed in a moment. We've got a bit of what you said. I've understood where you're coming from, Tanuj. Let me bring in Bhavna Somaya as well. Bhavna, you're hearing two views. Those who are saying these trolls may make a lot of noise, call for boycotts of film, Brahmastra being the latest, but they don't decide the fate of a film. However, the fact is several major films, Lal Singh Chadda, Raksha Bandhan, have all flopped in recent time. Is it to be blamed on trolls, or just that star system is breaking down? People have more options, business models are changing. Post-COVID, people don't want to go to the cinemas. Maybe things are changing in other ways and Bollywood is not changing fast enough.
Bollywood, first and foremost, we should stop referring to it as Bollywood, because now everything is pan-India movies. And I don't think any boycotts or any protest can change the fate of a film. If the film is good, people are going to watch it. Two, I think it's just become now a drawing room discussion for everybody that, oh, movies are not working, the superstars are not working, we need to think about what's going wrong. This has always happened. After every few years, there has been a kind of a decline at the box office where The filmmakers, the actors need to think, rethink, reinvent themselves, repackage their movies, and reflect about what they ought to be giving to the audience.
So is the star system though breaking down this idea that the big stars, the Salmans, the Amirs, the Shah Rukhs would pull films only on their star appeal? Is that changing? Because audiences now have many more options. You can watch some on YouTube, you can do OTT, you have very, very different options.
I think the stars are themselves at an age where they are going to be redefining themselves, because they are our superstar male heroes are all 50 plus. So there is a kind of a paradigm shift that happens in the kind of roles that they have to choose. But star system changing, see, we have been talking about the studios coming. Yash Raj has been talking. Whenever I used to meet Yash Chopra, I used to say that my movies should be watched because of my banner and not because particular star. So that is ultimately what all filmmakers aspire for, that V. Shantaram film should be watched for his banner and a Yash Raj film should be watched for their banner.
Industry needs to adjust to this changing world. Akshay, you're a film distributor, exhibitor. Is there too much of pressure in a way on these big budget films to deliver? There's still far too much is spent on the actors, the kind of salaries that the actors get, or the kind of cost that you spend just in having an Amir or a Shah Rukh or a Salman. I'm giving the three Khans again and again, but even an Akshay Kumar. Therefore, Bollywood needs to change its economics. Don't blame the trolls for boycotting films. They will do what they want. Bollywood needs to look inwards, change the economics of filmmaking.
Rajdeep, I guess the proof of the pudding is in the eating, and we're talking about this, we are debating this on a Friday when the movie that we just spoke about, which is Brahmastra, is released. And post the pandemic, since the emergence of the industry post the pandemic, it's taken the highest ever opening that's been witnessed since Diwali last year when Suryavanshi released. So the collections of Brahmastra today out of India alone across languages are going to be close to 30 crore rupees. So that clearly dispels the myth that any of these boycott calls or the trolling that happens has a sizable impact on the box office. So that's crystal clear, and that's been made clear today itself by the audience of our country. And talking about the impact of stars on the economics of our movies, well, absolutely. I mean, the one thing that's really changed, courtesy the advent of the pandemic, is the fact that we've been so overexposed to our stars, or rather the other way around, our stars have been so overexposed to us, courtesy this social media and PR blitzkrieg that they've been up to, that to go and pay money, drive to a theater, find parking through that ruckus, buy that ticket, and make it worthwhile an experience for you, you need to have much more than just a star. So it's truly going back to what cinema was always and originally meant to be, which was a storyteller's medium.
So the writer is king.
Look at it, the kind of movies that are doing well more because of the storytelling that is involved in them rather than the presence of an XYZ star. So that's where we are going back. And I think they're great signs, because by doing this, we'll again empower our writers, our filmmakers, our producers, and make it a more collective effort towards the success of films, rather than them being star-dependent vehicles, where, God forbid, a star doesn't continue to be as popular with his or her fans. Movies start tanking with big budgets. So I think it's a good metamorphosis that we are witnessing.
You're saying,
and I truly believe that there are great times ahead going up.
You're in a sense saying the story is the king. Content is king, story is the king, the writer is the king. Lata Srinivasan, we are seeing it with Southern cinema. I put up some numbers now of films like KGF 2 or RRR, which have sort of created this huge buzz around cinema coming in from the South. Many are saying they found the formula. They have these grand, they do it on a grand scale, or the story is powerful. Do you believe, Lata Srinivasan, whether it's a Pushpa, whether it's an RRR, KGF 2, the Southern cinema world has a few lessons to teach Bollywood? Or is that an exaggeration based on a couple of films being such big successes?
No, Rajdeep, I definitely think there is a learning curve for Bollywood here at this point, because storytelling and writing, especially the screenplay, the script, was very key and is very key in South cinema. Even if you take a small film, right, whether it's a 5 crore film or it's a 100 crore film like KGF, storytelling is so important. And I think Bollywood is now, catering so much to the multiplex urban young audience that they've forgotten what storytelling is about. If you look at the cinema of the 70s and 80s in Hindi, you had such fantastic films. So I think they really need to go back to the drawing board and look at content and see what is the kind of stories they need to tell on that, and that
Right.
I think they can learn from South cinema.
That's interesting. Bharat Dabolkar, your views? Do you believe that, what makes or breaks a film? These so
I think,
loud, do you believe these loud social media boycott calls are affecting
No.
cinema or not?
I don't think so. I don't think the social media, no matter how strong it is, it has any effect on an all India box office collections of a film. But as somebody just said, I think if the Bollywood industry started paying 30% to a writer or what they're paying to a star, I think we'll make better films. Because they get paid pittance and stars and directors get all the money. And I think that wonkiness that is in Bollywood has to be changed. Because it all begins with the writer. A writer thinks of those characters. A writer thinks of how the story should go. And if you don't have good writers, and they won't be good writers unless you pay them good money. Why should they write a good film for you if they don't get the kind of money that they should be getting?
Okay.
And unless that changes, and see, as I said, social media, I don't think has a great effect on box office. But as we say in advertising, Bollywood should be sensitive to what they are saying. There are signals that are being thrown at them. And Bollywood should be aware that these signals should be taken seriously. It may not affect a film or two now.
No, are you saying therefore that a film should not be seen, quote unquote, as anti-national or anti-Hindu, as some actors are perceived, or some particular scene? Because on the other side, you've got a Kashmir Files that did so successfully because it was seen to be in tune with what the government sort of nationalism narrative was.
See, finally, I'll tell you what happens. As we say in advertising, it's your target group. If you are targeting a certain section of society or the entire society, and if they feel like what you are saying, if they feel that the film should be nationalistic, then you better make films that are nationalistic. You can't go against a public opinion because you are here. It's a commercial, it's a business model. You can't say, I believe that I should not do this. I don't give a damn what my target group feels. Target group is the most important thing in any communication, whether it's a film, advertising campaign, a theater, whatever it is. You cannot say my target group feels like this, but I don't agree with that. You can't do that.
Okay, very interesting.
Then it doesn't work.
Yeah, very interesting, because this is something I put to Swara. Swara, these perceptions created around Bollywood. You have been seen as a left liberal voice. Do you feel a little more vulnerable as a result before a film release? As you are outspoken, you will be called anti-national, anti-Hindu. Does that make you now much more careful about what you say, because you could be targeted? There could be a call to boycott your film because the mood of the nation is very different from what a Swara Bhaskar may think, or a mood of a section of the nation.
Well, I mean, definitely I'm vulnerable and I'm a target, but I've been a target for this kind of nonsense for the last, 6-7 years. I think that I'm being, look, I don't want to, I know that everyone has this image that, oh, she's so controversial, she's always in a controversy, but I mean, I don't love it. I'm not seeking it. Yes, I'm honest and I'm frank about my opinions. And I'm frank as a citizen of this country, as a concerned citizen of this country. It's my right. But I do feel that, people are getting, even if I'm vulnerable as I am, I think that people are realizing now that it's becoming ridiculous. It's an agenda. I don't know that people are taking it very seriously. And, everyone knows what the game is really. As far as this film goes, Jahan Chariyar, it's a beautiful film about friendship, about we've always seen road trip and friendship films in Bollywood. You've never seen a road trip film that has 4 married housewives from small Indian towns being represented, people that in a snobbish sort of way are relegated and dismissed as being Bhenjis. This is a film where you kind of see how cool and badass and sassy these Bhenjis are, so-called Bhenjis. And I would just like to tell the Bollywood brigade that, dude, why do you want to, deny your families, your friends, your mothers, your sisters, your aunts a chance to see your own lives, their lives on screen? So if you sure you can boycott it, but why don't you show the film to your mom and your sister and your girlfriend first and boycott it? Yeah, thank you.
You know, that was Swara, but I also heard Alia Bhatt recently say, Bhavna Somaya, if you don't like me, don't watch my film. You know, she was very clear about it. That, you know, she doesn't care about these social boycott calls. It's all surround sound. You know, she's had a big hit in Gangubai this year. Do you therefore believe that actors also, do they need to be careful about what they say, what, you know, how they are perceived by audiences? Is that something that is new? You saw Bollywood in a previous era. Did actors need to be so conscious in the pre-social media era? Now everything that an actor says, every soundbite is picked up on social media and made into a controversy.
See, in the olden days, Rajdeep, there was only the print media, then came the electronic media. I think the dynamics changed when the digital media came, when the social media came. And also, actors or actresses were hardly speaking from public platforms. They were not even promoting their films, so they never got into trouble. Unless it was something about their personal lives, private lives. Then probably sometimes it became a scandal and the audience decided to protest or whatever.
Right.
Or there were controversies when the film was very controversial. Then it got into trouble at the censor board. And even though the censor board passed it when the film was released at the theatre, for example, Fire, then they created a ruckus at the theatre and tore the posters and all that.
Right.
I am against any kind of ban. I'm against any kind of trolling. People will say and do what they want to, but that cannot affect the talent of a person. For example, when I was listening to Swara, and I've been following her work from the time she has come into movies, you can say whatever you want about her views, but you cannot deny that she is a wonderful actor. You give her any role and she's fantastic. So it is the actor that matters. And when I talk to my neighbors, my building people, or my family, they don't care about what comes in the papers. They don't care about what the electronic media says. They
Right.
don't care what is the government stand on which person.
But is there
All they want is to see a good movie, a good actor, a
Right.
good story.
you know,
And what I feel, sorry.
Yeah, sorry, we are building towards a consensus in a way that content is king. People want better, you know, Tanuj Garg, because now you have all these OTT platforms out there producing some very, you know, quality stuff. And I've got limited time as a viewer to watch between YouTube, Instagram, all the various options I have. Are filmmakers now much more conscious about the kind of films that they make? That you've got to put the writer first, the script writer first, and as was suggested by someone today on the show, pay them more. Pay them at least half of what you pay the big stars. The writer is the new star, Tanuj Garg. Will that ever happen in Bollywood like it happens in Western cinema?
Can I speak?
So Rajdeep,
Yes, Tanuj.
I can speak. So Rajdeep, I can speak for ourselves. I can us as a production house, and I can speak for a couple of other friends of mine who are producers. And I think that shift in terms of paying writers, recognizing writers, acknowledging writers has happened, at least where we're concerned. In fact, I'm not going to take names or mention amounts on this show, but I will tell you that some of the amounts or the kind of monies that are being paid to writers now are pretty startling, you know. And writers
could a writer be paid? Could a writer ever be paid even 30% of what a star is paid?
As a production house, we're extremely conscious. Well, it depends which star you're talking about or what is the category of star you're talking about. But I will tell you that, you know, given the amount that the writers were previously paid, the kind of money they're being paid right now is almost 4 or 5 times. You know, what people they subscribe to this approach, but I can tell you that a lot of the new age, younger, more evolved production houses are beginning to recognize writers quite actively and aggressively.
Okay, we're still having some problem with the audio, although I think the audio is clear, the video is a bit of a problem. But yes, Bhavna, you wanted to step in and say something very quickly.
Yeah, so I want to add to what Tanuj was saying. We are becoming sensitized towards writers. We are giving them the dignity and whatever. But it's not as if it was not happening in the past. In fact, even in the past, everybody had a writer's room. And the filmmakers shared their scripts with each other And Raj Kapoor asked Bimal Roy what he thought about it, and Bimal Roy was asking K. Asif. So, it was far more democratic and nobody stole anybody's ideas.
So-
Today, what I feel is that while the young production houses are having good writers and a writer room, their gaze is becoming limited. It is a very incestuous group with whom you move around and who are your friends and who are the same age group. I feel the writer's room must have different age group, a female gaze, a male gaze, a socially conscious gaze, and the film should be dissected at every shooting stage.
Okay.
Because when I see a film like Liger, I wonder if they show it to anybody or they just release it.
That's an interesting way of putting it. Lata, is it very different in the South? Is there, this collaborative exercise, being much more conscious of changing audience tastes? Is that, I saw Pushpa, I saw KGF, two very different films, both very successful, but it seems a greater variety, plurality is now being encouraged in Southern cinema. Is that a conscious effort, a recent effort, or has it always been there?
No, Rajdeep, I think it's always been there. I think in South cinema, if you see, there has always been space for new talent. A lot of talented young directors, are signed on with big production houses. Nayanthara, for instance, who's the biggest, lady superstar she's called, works even with debutant directors if the script is good. So I think, they spend a lot of time writing and working on scripts. And it's very, very collaborative. Even if you see Yash's KGF 2, he worked even on the script with Prashant Neel. He gave him his inputs and he said, I have a certain image and these are certain things which can be done to enhance the image. There is a lot of collaboration that happens. It is not just, the director who makes the decision.
Right.
Everybody is experienced, young talent is encouraged, and of course, they don't share scripts with others, but definitely there's a lot of involvement right from the start to the producer in every movie that happens. And I think they take their time in developing the script. It's not done, in just 6 months. There are, several years some of them spend in writing a good script. So I think it is a very collaborative effort, but you also need to spend time in getting the script right.
Also a lot of this is being discussed post-COVID. And Akshay, as a exhibitor, distributor, has life changed post-COVID? That now to bring, dare I say, bums on the seat is much more difficult than it was pre-COVID. People now think twice unless they really are, keen on the movie or the script or the story idea. They don't want to go to the theatre anymore.
Well, Rajdeep, see, what certainly happened is this is a process that was on the way, right? What the pandemic has done is only accelerated it. And the reason that it's happened so suddenly, this whole process of clear demarcation about what people want to watch and where do they want to watch it, has, like I said, been accelerated greatly. And that's why right now we all, as an industry, scrambling to figure out what's the way forward to get things right.
No, but what do people want to watch? No, Akshay, is there a clarity on what really people want to watch? You had a Kashmir Files, which has been a big hit. You've got an RRR, which has been a big hit this year. You've got a Bhool Bhulaiya, very different films that have been hit. And you've got the big flops, including Akshay Kumar, Amir Khan type of big stars, their film not working. So what really works? We've said content works, but what else? Is there something else?
There's also a business angle to this, Rajdeep.
Yes.
That when now two people go to a multiplex cinema and if they eat 2 popcorn buckets and 2 tickets, it'll cost them about 2,000 rupees. And people are saying the same film will come on a OTT platform in about a month or 2 months. So why should I spend, unless it's some spectacular film like maybe Brahmastra is, why should I spend 2,000 rupees watching a film in a theatre if I can watch the same film 2 months later? Subscription, it's a business model also that helps here.
It's an interesting point. Akshay, you want to respond quickly to that? Is that a consideration? Are footfalls falling in general?
Absolutely, Rajdeep. But I'll tell you. So I'll make 2 points here. One, about what kind of movies are working. 3 broad categories. that really succeed in cinema halls because they differentiate the consumption experience from home viewing. One is big screen spectacles.
Okay.
So you have KGFs and Triple Rs, which have those production values, which can only optimally be enjoyed in cinema halls.
Okay.
The second is immersive viewing experiences, where elements like 3D come into play. So Brahmastra, which is released today, has very highly skewed preference towards the 3D format of it versus the 2D format in terms of the ticket sales.
Right.
And the third, which is a very unique to India factor, is the collective viewing experience. So whenever there's a great dialogue or a phenomenal action scene, 300 people cheering and clapping together and going apeshit crazy in that cinema hall is something that adds to the consumption experience. So broadly, these are the three categories of movies that are really doing very well at cinema halls.
Interesting.
And having said that, I think this whole debate that we've been having about the boycotts and everything else, while I completely agree that every Indian, and especially the art fraternity, must have that right to express themselves, I think it's equally important for them to be somewhat sensitive to the social and cultural ethos of this country. We need to understand that our people, and when I say people, I mean the common people, have a set of beliefs around their religion, around their culture, and all of that, which they are sensitive towards. And the least we can do is be at least respectful and sensitive towards it, if not, kind of, as some people would like to believe.
Tanuj, you agree? Tanuj, you agree that you've got to be sensitive? Do you really agree that a filmmaker should be sensitive about religious, cultural choices and concerns, or not? Do the film the way he or she wants it to be done?
Rajdeep, I do agree that some degree of sensitivity is required, and I'm not debating that. But I think the problem here is way beyond that. I think it's just tragic that the trolls really go after a film only because someone associated with of these trolls, right? And I think that is the larger issue here. So what's happening is producers are being forced to resort to some amount of self-censorship. They're trying to become a little more careful, a little more...
So you're saying there's an element of self-censorship which is creeping in, which is troubling? Right. Lata, you raised your hand, you want to respond?
Yeah, I was just, when you were talking about content and what the audience wants, I mean, if you ask Rajamouli also, he will say, I don't know what the audience wants, but I believe in a certain story. And, therefore, when he was talking about Bahubali and RRR, it was all about the story. And I think here what matters is the director's vision. At the end of the day, it has to appeal to everybody, from an auto rickshaw wala to somebody who is suitable for the multiplex audience. It has to connect with all of them. And a story like that, which is able to connect across classes, is what works with the audience.
It's interesting that we are now talking about being sensitive to cultural sensibilities, and maybe that can at times lead, as Tanuj just now pointed out, to an element of self-censorship. Swara, who, as I said, I spoke to earlier, should Bollywood introspect to that extent, or shall we call it Hindi cinema introspect, look beyond this superstar syndrome or the way films were traditionally made, where the focus was entirely on the actor, usually the male actor? It happened in the Amitabh Bachchan era. Before that, Rajesh Khanna. We can go back to Dilip Kumar, but even with the Khans and Akshay Kumar. Or, are you worried that films are getting caught in these left versus right tangles on social media and these boycott calls? Forget all that and just make a good film, introspect, and just improve the quality of the subjects that you're offering audiences.
The right-wing attempt to malign Bollywood and to damage Bollywood is there. It's real. Bollywood is under attack by the right wing. I just don't know how successful they are at this moment, is what I'm saying.
Okay, so, these attacks we've decided are perhaps not going to decide fate of films like Brahmastra. They will be decided on the basis of possibly film reviews. Do film reviews make a difference? Bhavna Somaya, as a former film editor, do you believe that if on Friday I say a film, I give a film only 1 star or 2 star, does that sort of make or break a film anymore, or not?
It depends on who you are and what you're saying. But I feel that even when I give a few star, and I've not liked the film, I know that in the elevator or in the garden of my building, I meet my neighbors and they say, I know you didn't like the film, but I went and saw because it's my favorite star. And I love that. And today, everybody is a reviewer. My milkman comes in the morning and says, Didi, आपने उस फिल्म को 2 स्टार दिया, मैं तो नहीं मानता हूँ, मैं तो 3 दूंगा. तो मैंने बोला बिल्कुल दे दो आप 3 स्टार. So my sister, my bhabhi, everybody is a reviewer. But before we wind up, Rajdeep, I want to say a couple of very quick pointers. Number one, it's the content that makes a film.
Yes.
Number two, big budgets, big stars, great marketing plans, going to the malls does not make a super success. Only a story makes a film. And number 5, the stars, the superstars have to realize that because OTT platform is available to them, they don't want to spend 500, 1,000 rupees to go to the theater. Also, they have become far too accessible. There is no charisma. They are seen left, right, center on social media platforms everywhere.
You know,
Only the old
that's a
world.
good point. Amitabh Bachchan, if I recall right, Bhavna Somaya boycotted the film media for years. That didn't stop him from being the biggest superstar of our times.
Rajdeep Bachchan didn't speak to the media for 18 years at the peak of his success. 18 years. All his films were super success and made more money than what can be compared with our current stars. He has never promoted a single film, nor has any actor of that time. We came to know about a film when we saw the film posters on the road.
Right.
And after that, when we went to the theater and saw those little pictures put there, you know, and we made up our own stories about these movies before we went inside the cinema halls.
You know,
There was so much of a longing, yearning to go to the theater and watch them. The single screens
So
and
was
even
what-
multiplexes.
You know, but Akshay, is there still that first day, first show film draw that I had when I was a teenager? I wanted to go and watch Great Gambler. I remember Amitabh Bachchan's film and I made sure I went there first day, first show. Is that still there or not there anymore?
Rajdeep, it certainly exists, but the instances are a lot fewer and far between. So down south, especially in the Telugu and the Tamil industries, it's still a massive thing where whenever Rajnikant or a Vijay or an Ajit or an Allu Arjun or a Tarak or a Mahesh Babu movie releases, 3 in the morning, people will throng the cinemas. It'll be a celebration. And, you know, they'll celebrate it like the celebrations for a Bachchan release used to be in the 80s. I'll tell you where we've gone wrong with the Hindi industry. In terms of our storytelling, the kind of films that we make, we've gone very urban and elitist. And the audience that we are catering to is not the demographic that hero worships.
Right.
It's not the audience that celebrates cinema. It's the audience that analyzes cinema, sitting in their plush chairs in a PVR Gold Class or an Inox Insignia. So I think that shift that has unfortunately happened from
Right.
catering to the Aam Aadmi to catering to a much more elite, sophisticated audience, generally speaking. Of course, there is a Salman Khan film that comes by, there is a Tiger Shroff film that comes by, a Rohit Shetty film that comes by, and you see that happening all over again. So it's not like the audience has changed. We have gone wrong with catering to a very high value market rather than the volume market, which is our Aam Aadmi.
How would
So
you,
that's
how
where
would
we've
you,
gone
how
wrong.
would you, Bharat Dabolkar, if you were to advise a filmmaker there for promotional, film promotionals, do you now change the
No,
way,
no,
way
let me-
film should be promoted as well?
No, let me continue what he was saying. I had this very nice conversation with Mithun Chakrabarti years ago when we were shooting for a film with Salman Khan. And he made a point that when he and Amitabh Bachchan were the top stars, he's saying our audiences were across the country. We had urban audiences and rural audiences. What is happening with Bollywood now is that you're making such elitist themes for your films that multiplexes audience are watching your films, but the masses are watching regional cinema now because that's where their connect is. So his point, Mithun Das' point was, if you start making films where you connect with the masses, and then Salman went and made Dabhang, where he was a Chulbul Pandey which connected with the masses, and that worked for him. It wasn't an elitist theme. It was not a guy in America talking about things. He was a UP cop. And that worked for him in rural or small town areas. It worked for him because there's Salman Khan in bigger towns.
So,
So I think the point is,
yes, go ahead. Go
the
ahead.
point is that you must make films which would connect with everybody, not just in terms of the star power, but in terms of the themes that you are using. Otherwise, people turn to regional cinema.
You're mentioning regional cinema, and I know that I don't think Yash wants to be treated as a regional cinema actor anymore, but his film KGF 2 has been the biggest grosser of the year. I had spoken to him earlier this year. Just listen in to what Yash said, because it's instructive to see the new generation of cinema stars coming from different parts of the country, not traditional Hindi cinema. Listen in. Yash, Prashant, you're laughing your way to the box office. I want both of you to tell me first, did you ever expect, Yash, this kind of success? This is stupendous. You're breaking every record in Hindi cinema. Forget about Kannada cinema and other languages. Did you expect this, Yash?
No, I kind of wanted it. We hoped to get this kind of response. But looking at the way my teaser was received and the trailer was received, we kind of had a hit. But the way people have turned out, and yeah, it's overwhelming for sure.
It's overwhelming for sure. Prashant,
Yeah.
I mean, as a director, when you make a film, it's one thing to make KGF, which is a box office hit. Then 3 years later, you come up with KGF 2, and it becomes even bigger. Normally, sequels don't always work. So what's the success formula?
I think we stuck to our story, sir. To begin with, I don't know how the appreciation for KGF came in. I was not totally on board. Everybody else believed, basically it's not just the scale that has to work sometimes, it is in the totality, the soul of the movie has to work. And I think that call was taken by the producer and Yash. They were the first audiences. So they, thought that it was right that we take this step. And of course, Bahubali had already done that for us. We knew that there was a lot of tolerance and acceptance for movies coming from the South. And we're proud to represent it a little further.
Lata, should we be calling them regional cinema stars anymore? Are all those barriers now broken? The barriers of geography are completely broken down. With OTT platforms also, films get translated in different languages. It's a completely new ball game. All barriers seem to be broken.
Absolutely. I don't think we should call it regional cinema anymore. It's all Indian cinema. These stars are all Indian stars. And, Yash is as well known in the Hindi heartland as he is in the South. So I think the other, point I quickly wanted to make, Rajdeep, is that in the South, the tier 2 and tier 3 audiences are very, very important in the market, and I think when filmmakers are making films and when stars sign films, they are very conscious of this fact. Right. It's not geared towards a multiplex, audience. So I think that's also a major difference of why South films are doing so well. And the fan clubs, of course, are huge here, as you know.
That's right. Those fan clubs still remain. I mean, there's still first day, first show, I presume, at least for a Rajnikant film. Yes, very quickly, Akshay.
Rajdeep, I think to end this, the bottom line that we need to understand is that the strength of India as a market is not our disposable income levels. It's our population. The day we start thinking about deriving a little bit of money from a lot of people, instead of trying to derive a lot of money from a few people, we'll get it right. And the key to doing that is storytelling that is intellectually accessible to the widest possible audience in India. And that's what KGF did, that's what RRR did, that's what Bhool Bhulaiya did. And that's the reason why they're as successful as they are, because they cater to tier 1, 2, 3 multiplexes, single screens, everyone. Okay, and if we can do that, I'm sure we'll stumble upon success a lot more frequently.
Tanuj, is there a formula therefore, or are you also looking now at film just for OTT?
Not at all, Rajdeep. I think to each his own. I think creators are of all shapes, sizes, and sensibilities. And honestly, I wouldn't entirely subscribe to what Akshay is saying. I think technically, as a filmmaker, as a creator, I think we should go with our instinct and our creative beliefs, and not just necessarily create what is perceived to be or what is apparently meant to be massy in the real sense of the word. I think we did a film like Neerja, which was never perceived to be, widely commercial. We cast Vidya Balan in a housewife film called Tumhari Sulu. When Vidya was in the back of 3 flops, it was a very, very straightforward, simple storytelling formula, right? But these films performed exceedingly well at the box office. So I think...
so you're saying there are different audiences and each one to himself or herself. There is no one formula, one size fits all model anymore in Hindi cinema, correct? There never perhaps was. There never perhaps was. You had a Basu Chatterjee who could be as successful as a Manmohan Desai in the 1970s, and who is to say that things are any different at the moment? Since we started off with Swara, let me end with her, because right through, I think, this discussion, we've said content is king. If the film is good, people will still go out and watch the movie, even though they might disagree with Swara Bhaskar's political views. If the film is good, it will run despite boycott calls. You can try and boycott or call for boycotting a Brahmastra because you believe that Ranbir Kapoor shouldn't have said that he eats beef. It's not going to work. Am I correct, Swara, that films ultimately will work if the content is superb?
Yeah, I'm saying that it's notwithstanding me. I think that, firstly, don't keep repeating that, Rajdeep sir. I don't want my producer to be watching your show and getting jittery and me getting yelled at tomorrow morning. But on a serious note, no, I think that we should give our audiences a little more credit. I think that if the film is good and if the content, if it resonates with them, then the film will work. Or if there's something that's new, something that's interesting, something that's holding their attention, I think films are working. It's not about me or any other individual actor. I mean, look, all right, yeah, I'm identified in a certain way. But look, I mean, Akshay Kumar sir's film hasn't worked, and there isn't a greater supporter of this government than him, or this agenda, or whatever it is. Like, he's definitely not me, right? So the fact is that there are many films that are not working, and there are films that are working as well. So I feel like maybe we're paying too much attention to this, who the actor is, what the actor's stand is, this, that. Let's also remember that the cinema theater business has suffered 2 of its worst years in the history of the business, which is the 2 COVID years. Film theaters have been shut down for a long time. When they opened at 50% capacity. That math will kill you. If you can only fill 50% of the theater, your whole houseful formula, your whole calculation of what your returns are per show, per day, everything gets skewed. So we've suffered that. Then COVID is still going on. People are scared. People's consumption patterns have changed. Everyone has subscriptions to OTT. People are now watching, they know that in 3-4 weeks time the film is going to come on OTT. So many films are releasing directly to OTT. So there's a lot of challenges that the theater business has faced. It's not just boycott. People are scared. I mean, if you have children, if you have elderly parents, you don't want to go into a theater and risk the whole family. So it's a hard time apart from these boycott things. So I think that we have to look at why the theater business is suffering in a more holistic way. Anurag Kashyap did an interview the other day, and I thought he made perfect sense. He said, we're going through an economic slump. People don't have the kind of spending capacity that they did once. I mean, there is a huge section of people that have still not recovered from the losses, the financial losses or the cost of COVID. So I think that we have to think of all these things as well, as opposed to only focusing on boycotts as the one and sole problem that the industry has.
On that note, I think we've had a very educative experience on where Hindi cinema is heading, where cinema is heading. It's been wonderful to have all you articulate voices giving us a glimpse of the challenges that lie ahead, the reinvention that is necessary in a way, the perhaps reinvention at all levels, including that of the big stars. For now, thank you very much. Remember, at the end of the day, the show must go on. That really is what entertainment is all about. Thanks very much for watching our roundtable today. Bye for now. Namaskar.